Hello, in this episode I wanted to talk about loneliness. We're often told that it's really bad for us, but is that always the case? Short answer, it depends. As usual, if you've watched any of these podcasts before, when it's just me and I'm not in conversation with someone, I'll tend to use articles and research papers to help unpack things. Today is no different. And also, as usual, I will put a link to any articles or papers that I refer to in the description, and I won't talk about every part of every article or research paper because I encourage you to also do your own research. Anyway, this is from Mind, the mental health charity, who are excellent in my opinion, and it's about loneliness from their website. They say, many of us feel lonely from time to time. Feelings of loneliness are personal, so everyone's experience will be different. Absolutely. Some people describe loneliness as a feeling we have when our need for social contact and relationship isn't met. I would agree with that. But loneliness isn't the same as being alone. Very important point. You may feel content without much contact with other people. Yes, indeed, but others may find this a lonely experience, and certainly they do, and certainly I've been there. What about you? Some people may only feel lonely at certain times, but some people may experience chronic loneliness. This is a deep feeling of loneliness that goes on for a long time. You may be around others and still feel like you're alone. Very important sentence. Some people might think that you need to live alone to feel lonely, or that being lonely means not having many friends or family around you. But you can have lots of social contact and support and still feel lonely, absolutely. Especially, again an important point in my opinion, if you don't feel understood or cared for by the people around you. Now this question posed again from the website of Mind, the mental health charity. Is loneliness a mental health problem? Feeling lonely isn't a mental health problem, is the answer here. And yet, let's skip across to the World Health Organization, if we dare, who declares loneliness a global public health concern. The World Health Organization has launched an international commission on loneliness, which can be as bad for people's health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And that's from 2023. So how can that be the case? It's not really. What was it that Mind said? It's feeling lonely isn't a mental health problem, but it's as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So let's get back to Mind and continue. But having a mental health problem can increase feelings of loneliness. And I think this is how we can make these two apparently disparate perspectives connect and overlap at least. For example, if you're struggling with your mental health, you may avoid social events and activities you usually enjoy, have low self-esteem, find it hard to try new things and worry about engaging with others, find it difficult to speak to people about how you're feeling for fear of stigma or not being understood. Yes, absolutely. Feel like you could be a burden to others. Yes, feel overwhelmed in busy places or at work, events and parties. Definitely. So, remember what I said at the top, having a mental health problem can increase feelings of loneliness. Then we come on to this. Feeling lonely can have a negative impact on your mental health, especially if you've felt lonely for a long time. Some research suggests that loneliness can increase stress. I'd say that research is very accurate. It's also associated with an increased risk of certain mental health problems, for example, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem and sleep problems. No surprises. And then we have this little diagram. My mental health has made me lonely. And feeling lonely has damaged my mental health. And because my mental health has been damaged, then I probably won't do some of the things that I would have done normally, and so that's made me lonely, and that feeling of loneliness can further impact and damage my mental health. And so this can become quite a spiral, a vicious circle at least. And that, I think, is one of the reasons for that headline about the 15 cigarettes and why it is such an issue, such a problem, such a catastrophe in many cases. Certain life experiences, again this is from Mind, may make you feel lonely, such as experiencing a bereavement, it's understandable, going through a relationship breakup, ditto, retirement, yes, changing jobs, starting at uni, experiencing mental health problems, as we've just explored, becoming a parent, because again you can be isolated, looking after that child or children, moving to a new area or country without family, friends or community networks, definitely. You may feel lonely at certain times of the year, for example around holidays like Christmas, Ramadan or Valentine's Day, and that's often why I'm more active around about the festive season, because a lot of people are well, it can be quite a negative experience for them. And by active, I mean speaking to people, giving talks, and sometimes making videos. I'm really glad this is in Mind's website as well, in this part about loneliness. Money. Many of us are struggling with money right now. This may have an impact on how often we can see other people. This can affect our well-being and how lonely we feel. And since the lockdowns and a lot of change on the planet, a lot of impact in terms of food, bills, heat, light, power, this is a big issue for a lot of people, no pun intended. If you can't afford the things you need, help is out there. Visit our pages on money and mental health to find out more about what support might be available to you. And although this is a UK website, I don't think there's any restrictions on most people accessing. Again, I think Mind produces a lot of good info. But here's the counter to that. Not exactly the counter, but potentially some exceptions. This is actually from a BBC article, again link in the description, and it is titled, Why Being a Loner May Be Good for Your Health. We tend to decry being alone, but emerging research suggests some potential benefits to being a loner, including for our creativity, mental health, and even leadership skills. Asocial tendencies like these are often far from ideal. In other words, that's removing oneself from any social interaction. Abundant research shows the harms of social isolation, considered a serious public health problem in countries that have rapidly aging populations. Yes, but not just them. Though talk of a loneliness epidemic may be overblown, potentially, but I wouldn't want to diminish the harms and what some people are going through. In the UK, the Royal College of GPs says that loneliness has the same risk level for premature death as diabetes. It's interesting. Again, not smoking, this time with diabetes. Strong social connections are important for cognitive functioning, motor function, and smoothly running an immune system. And, well, that sounds like some good things to have in place. This is especially clear from cases of extreme social isolation, examples of people kept in captivity, children kept isolated in abusive orphanages, and prisoners kept in solitary confinement, all show how prolonged solitude can lead to hallucinations and other forms of mental instability. And again, hallucinations, it's perhaps no surprise in those extreme environments. The brain, in a sense, is filling in the blanks. It's one way to look at it, but not in a good way. But these are severe and involuntary cases of aloneness. For those of us who just prefer plenty of alone time, emerging research suggests some good news. There are upsides to being reclusive for both our work lives and our emotional well-being. Creative space. One key benefit is improved creativity. Gregory Feist, who focuses on the psychology of creativity at California San Jose State Uni, has defined creativity as thinking or activity with two key elements: originality and usefulness. I like that description. Creativity, it's original, it's creative, and it's useful in some way. That's often useful. For it to be useful, that thing, that thought, that new strategy that we have created. He has found that personality traits commonly associated with creativity are openness, absolutely, receptiveness to new thoughts and experiences, self-efficacy. It says here confidence. It's a confidence in our ability to make a difference in our environment, to have agency, and autonomy. Independence, very important at almost any age, that having a sense of being able to have a say in how our lives are unfolding is important. And one could argue that self-efficacy is the confidence to do that. So sorry, I interrupted myself. And autonomy, independence, which may include a lack of concern for social norms. In other words, I'll dress how I want. I'll sing if I want as I go down the street because it makes me happy, as long as it's not upsetting anyone. Then so what? And a preference for being alone. Interesting. In fact, Feist's research on both artists and scientists shows that one of the most prominent features of creative folks is their lesser interest in socializing. And there's quite a lot of research about that that personality trait, openness, this receptiveness to new ideas. Sometimes it can be difficult to to pin that creative individual down. And very often this may be you. If somebody says, "What do you do? What's your job?" or what is it you're interested in? It's very difficult to answer that question because you're going boom off in 10 different directions to answer it, and you don't like to be pinned down because you think, well, I've got this interest and that other one over there. But interestingly, and perhaps surprisingly, that openness kind of means that sometimes you want to be closed in the sense that you like to be alone. One reason for this is that such people are likely to spend sustained time alone working on their craft, wherever that may be. Plus, Feist says many artists are trying to make sense of their internal world and a lot of internal personal experiences that they're trying to give expression to and meaning to through their art. Could be music, could be painting, could be sculpture, could be writing a play, a video perhaps that they're making. Solitude allows for the reflection and observation necessary for that creative process. And that reflection, that ability to slow down and reflect and meditate. I don't mean actually meditation as such, although yes, that could happen here, but just consider, cogitate, ruminate. Very important for, I think, a lot more of us to do, whether we have that high trait openness or not, to counter the jangle of experiences that are potentially around us 24/7. And the article goes on. This is still the BBC one. A recent vindication of these ideas came from University of Buffalo psychologist Julie Bowker, who researches social withdrawal. Social withdrawal usually is categorized into three types. Shyness, that's because of fear or anxiety about socializing. Avoidance, I'm not going to go near it because I dislike it. And unsociability, from a preference for solitude. And a paper by Bowker and her colleagues was the first to show that a type of social withdrawal could have a positive effect. This preference for not socializing. They found that creativity was linked specifically to unsociability. They also found that unsociability had no correlation with aggression. Shyness and avoidance did. Shyness because people get annoyed because maybe they're asked to go somewhere, they don't want to do it, or the thought of it gets them a little bit annoyed and angry and irritated. And avoidance because people, hey, I just don't like that idea and I want to avoid it and don't ever consider that I would do that and leave me alone. But unsociability, no. And again, this article goes on. This was significant because while previous research has suggested that unsociability might be harmless, and this is the key, Bowker and colleagues' paper showed that it could actually be beneficial. Unsociable people are likely to be having just enough interaction, she says. They have a preference for being alone, but they also don't mind being with others. And why is that important? I think it's important because, as I said, we're told that there's a bit of a brewing storm out there that actually has arrived in terms of loneliness, and it's so important to reach out to people. It's so important, if you possibly can, if it's you, to speak out and say, hey, would you mind meeting up for a cup of coffee, whatever. And that can be difficult, again, if there are these concomitant mental health issues going on. But once more, it is about the conversation, it is about reaching out, it is about talking, it is about asking people how they're doing. But if you find, if this is you, and you think, well, I do get lonely and I do need social interaction, but I'm great spending time alone, is there something wrong? No, I've been like that for years and I never did think there was anything wrong. It's not that I don't need social interaction, and I can get lonely, but I do spend a lot of time, I suppose, in a sense, creating. Maybe nothing useful at all, possibly all useless, in fact, so that wouldn't be creativity, because I had to have some utility according to that earlier definition. But hopefully you get my point. If that's you, as long as you're happy within yourself, then you're probably fine. It's probably the best thing for you. But remember what it says there, having just enough interaction. And we're all different. And I think what this is also highlighting is that spectrum again, that we're all a bit different. However, if you are on your own and you're not getting enough interaction, wherever you might be, whether it's because of some form of shyness or avoidance, or again, you're just unsociable, but you're feeling stressed because of it, then please reach out, talk to someone. And also, if that shyness and that avoidance is causing you some issues in your life, then please also consider seeking professional help.